Welcome all of you to this public meeting, Cries from Kashmir. We have with us two distinguished speakers, and I'll welcome them. Parvez Imroz. Parvez, can you come and join us on the dais? And Mirza Saaib Beg, please. Mirza Saaib Beg graduated from Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad, a gold medalist actually, in 2013. Academically, of course, he's been teaching assistant and guest lecturer at different universities, including universities in Kashmir. He's been also with the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. So he's worked in the judiciary in Jammu and Kashmir and has also been as part of the J&K High Court in the policy department of the J&K High Court. He's presently actually based in Bombay in the legal affairs department of SEBI. I must of course mention that Mirza Saaib Beg is also a very enthusiastic cyclist. I think some of you on social media must be knowing much more than I about him. I just done a Google and found out some of these things. There's been also a cause behind this enthusiasm, this cycling enthusiasm. A cause cyclothon, raising funds for orphanages, in Kashmir, raising funds for students and, raising funds for students, including students who want to go to the universities to study law and so on. So behind this whole cause cyclothon, it's not merely the idea, it's the journey, it's the vision behind it. And that's where actually you have a lot of Mirza Saaib Beg, I'd now like to call upon Mirza Saaib Beg to begin, and he's going to give us a short historical account of the Kashmir dispute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Saaib, and what I wanted to do today with you was just touch upon some of the landmark points in Kashmir's political history. The images that you saw just before the documentary film, that is just a glimpse at one facet of what Kashmiris have endured. And you can look at Kashmir from various perspectives. You can look at it from a humanitarian perspective, an economic, social perspective. But the gravamen, the main issue in Kashmir is a political one. And unless you address the political concerns, these issues will always remain there. So what is happening right now in Kashmir could even be termed as a post-Orwellian or a post-Kafkaesque phenomenon, because we have endured totalitarian regimes, completely authoritarian rule for decades now. Not just 27 years, but I'd rather say 70 years now. And the demands have always been the same, or on similar lines. It's just the expression that has changed. So what has resulted through this process is the creation of a system of governance that does not believe in rendering justice, but rather just perpetuating itself. So the system of governance just perpetuates itself and doesn't believe in justice being served. And the state has worked relentlessly to engineer within Kashmir and outside Kashmir a cognitive dissonance, by way of which it is only the state's version of facts that is presented before people. It is only, and the individual is left dependent on the state's narrative. So it's essential when you are trying to find a solution to problems that are faced over there, it's essential to have at least a shared sense of reality, a shared sense of what has happened. Only then can you address the problem. What we have right now, the current situation is that the governments are not ready to accept that this is the problem, that this is the demand, the political demand in the valley. they digress on it. They'll sidestep it. They'll tell you that this is not the issue. It's probably engineered somewhere else. It's probably motivated by some other factors, but they will not directly address the issue. The primary issue is one of Azadi, which you saw calls and cheer and slogans in the documentary as well. So Azadi is a very complex term, and the essential thing for Kashmiris is to be allowed to explore what that Azadi means for them. But at its very crude and rudimentary form, it's a rejection of status quo. It's a rejection of what India has created in Kashmir. At its very crude form, it's that. And at a more evolved form, it could mean other things as well. But whether you feel that this call for Azadi is delusional, that it is absolutely unfounded, or whether you feel that this call is merely aspirational, or whether you feel that, and dare I say it, whether you feel that this is actually inspirational, you have to accept that this is the call in the valley. This is the issue that you have to be dealing with. And unless you can address it, the government will not make any headway. So what I've done over the course of the next few minutes, I'll just touch upon how this call has evolved and how it has been reacted to. Because in your reaction, the reaction that you choose, that the government of India, that the people of India choose to deal with this call, even if you feel that this call is unfounded or incorrect, or it might not be good for the future of the people of Kashmir, but you have to deal with it. And how you choose to deal with it will determine how many more people you condemn to die, including your own soldiers. So right now what is happening is, because you are being told to ignore what is happening. You are being told that if a juvenile is being shot at, or if a juvenile is being arrested under draconian laws, it's okay because he was probably protesting. If a woman is asserting that she has been molested or raped, she's probably doing it because she wants to bring down the morale of the soldiers. And if a funeral procession is being shot at, then they're probably raising anti-India slogans. So you're not even being allowed to engage with the issue. The issue is much deeper. You are being restricted at the very periphery, and these acronyms get thrown at you, and you are restricted from even engaging with what the issue is. You're not even being allowed to ask what was so grave and provocative about those slogans that hurts the fabric of India. What is so detrimental in what is being said over there, that these people have to be killed, that it is necessary to kill them. And furthermore, how is it that your lives in Mumbai are being made safer by the deaths of these people? If an innocent civilian is being shot, I do not have the right to question why. I do not have the right to ask what were the circumstances in which this person was killed. Or at the very least tell me, what do I not have to do to be killed? In the recent 4 months, we saw even cases of people who were in their homes being dragged out, beaten up, and the next day their dead body was dropped off. And you have the Northern Army Command Chief saying that this is not an authorized raid, this is not an authorized operation. So it is completely extrajudicial, it is murder. It cannot be termed by any other way. So you have to question as to how your lives are being made safer by the murder of these people. Because you are being told, see, this is what is happening in Kashmir is being done in your name. It is being done, at least seemingly, it is being done to make you secure, to keep you safer. So you have to ask, how are these people's deaths making you safer? So because we do not have much time to touch upon the intricacies of the historical development, I'll quickly just touch upon where we are right now in Kashmir. It's basically a war of narratives, and the state identifies these narratives for you because it gives them easy demons to slay. The state will just tell you this is just 5% of the population that is engaging in anti-India activities, or it's just the work of jihadis in Pakistan. These are just easy demons to slay. You do not need to apply your mind further then. You don't need to delve into the issue beyond that. So Pakistan calls us the jugular vein of Pakistan, and India calls us the integral part of India. So whichever side you may want to call us on, you have to understand that the issue is not one of territoriality. The issue is one of the people of Kashmir. It's not just about the land of Kashmir. So whether this struggle is foreign manufactured or indigenous, you will only be able to address that when you address the people of Kashmir. So this is the response of the state that we have had in 2016. You had an imposition of curfew, a media gag where newspapers were raided, copies were confiscated, and there's a complete communication blockade. For weeks on an end, I didn't know what was happening to my family. I didn't know what was happening in my home, and I read reports of people being shot dead just outside the main gate of my house. So it's a tremendous state of uncertainty, and this is not something that is happening just right now. This is not the first time that people have come out in large numbers in 2016. It's happened before, it's happened in 2008, 2010, and it will keep happening. It is just the impetus is always different. This time it was Burhan Wani was the cause, but he is just Burhan Wani is just the cause for the end eruption. There's always a tension that is building up. So the response of the Indian state has always been, right since 1947, it's been that, you know, if you don't talk about it, it is going to go on its own. People will forget about it. It's not going to go away. Pakistan will forget about it. You know, we broke Pakistan into two in 1971, so they'll forget about it, they won't talk about it again. But every time you analyze Kashmir from the perspective of Pakistan, you always ignore the people of Kashmir. And that's where the primary issue is. Pakistan will obviously try to use it to its advantage, but that is not the primary concern. The primary concern is with the people of Kashmir. So the response by Indian civil society in these 4 or 5 months in 2016 was glorification of state aggression. We even heard arguments that these people probably deserve it because they raised slogans against the country. There were calls to cut off ties with Pakistan, but what you fail to understand when you make these arguments is that India only controls 1/3 of the territory of Kashmir, the original territory of Kashmir. So when you talk about cutting off ties from Pakistan, the 2/3 territory, which is under Pakistan control, what happens with that? Do you forego the claim on that? And how does this even function as a foreign policy measure? Every time Pakistan talks about Kashmir, you say, what about Balochistan? Every time China talks about Kashmir, you say, what about Tibet? These are not comebacks. You're only saying that Pakistan, India, is as illegal in Kashmir as Pakistan is in Balochistan or China is in Tibet. So this is not even as a measure of foreign policy, the argument is just circuitous. The argument is always to sidestep the actual issue and just divert attention towards something else. Or the classic, the strategy of confusing the problem of Kashmir with the problems of Kashmir. We have many problems. There's poverty, there is a radicalized element as well. There are other issues, there are issues on feminism. These are problems of Kashmir and we will deal with them as they come up. Because as a society we have to evolve and we will engineer solutions for them as our society will develop. But these are not the problem of Kashmir. The problem of Kashmir is a political one. It's not a religious issue. Recently when the protests had just started, the response of the Indian government was to send a band of Molvis of every sect. One Molvi from a Wahhabi sect, one Molvi from a Hanafi sect, from Shia, Sunni, from different sects of Islam. They just sent one Molvi there as if to pray away the protest within us. So, and the people in Kashmir just said, what are you even doing? Are we saying that we want someone to come and interpret a verse of the Quran for us? Are we saying that we do not understand there is some conflict in the Hadith, so we want someone to come here and explain it to us? We are not asking for laptops, we are not asking for jobs. The people out protesting, see, not having jobs is a problem of Kashmir, but it is not why they are out on the streets. They are out on the streets for a different reason, and unless you address that, you cannot find a solution to Kashmir. So the first thing that you have to establish is that you understand that there is a demand being made and you have to engage with that demand. You might disagree with the idea of Azadi, you might completely think it is futile, but that is the demand, so you come engage with that and tell us what you want. We can work out different solutions, but first engage with that. So there's one famous caricature that I'd come across about the rest, which is emblematic of the response by the Indian civil society, which is on Kashmir, that let's just not talk about it. This problem will go away on its own. So before I begin with the historical perspective, I just thought I'd give you an idea, because I don't know how acquainted the gathering is with Kashmir. So this is the administrative map of Kashmir as it stands today. The portion is green, is under Pakistan control. The United Nations uses the term Pakistan administered Kashmir and Indian administered Kashmir, but because now it is criminal to produce those maps, so I have just produced this as an administrative understanding. So the portion in white is the valley, and the portion in yellow and white is the territory which is under Indian control right now. So I'll start with 1931, which is basically when the first political awakening took place in Kashmir. So to give you a historical backdrop, Kashmir had been sold under the Treaty of Amritsar to the Maharaja, and there was always dissent against the Maharaja, but it is in 1931 that you see this dissent coming out in an organized fashion. There were young men who had come, who were educated from outside Kashmir, and they came back to Kashmir with these new ideas, these newfangled ideas of democracy, of how they want to be governed, of self-determination. So they decided that they want equality in employment, they want a certain set of rules to apply to them, and they wanted to decide what kind of government, what kind of structure they want to be governed by. So you see a people's movement being launched, a movement for enfranchisement, where they said that no sale deed can dictate the lives of people. A sale deed cannot sell people. It is a sale deed of the territory of Kashmir, but you cannot dictate what the people of Kashmir want under that sale deed. So the Quit Kashmir movement, in this backdrop you have the Muslim Conference being born in Kashmir, and which subsequently became the National Conference. So it is in this backdrop that a vociferous demand was made for enfranchisement of the people, which was the Quit Kashmir movement. And the Quit Kashmir movement is different from the Quit India movement. Quit Kashmir movement is a constitutional movement. We never asked for the Maharaja to leave Kashmir, but we wanted to abolish the monarchy in Kashmir. We wanted to have a constitutional government in Kashmir. So it's a constitutional issue, and not one like Quit India, which was not a constitutional issue, but one where you're asking the British to quit India completely. So at this time, you see the emergence of expressionism in Kashmir, political expression in Kashmir. So when the constitution was being drafted at that time, when people were deciding what laws they want to be governed by, you see, there's a difference between a functional constitution and an expressive constitution. Because the constitution is the supreme law of the land. It is the supreme form, the most pure form of expression that a people have, under which they derive all authority of all their laws from. So a constitution has to be expressive. It cannot merely be functional. The constitution of 1958 of Kashmir was engineered by removing any impediments that disagreed with the view in the center. So that constitution can only serve as a functional constitution and not as an expressive constitution. So Sheikh Abdullah, when he launched this movement, he was arrested. He was imprisoned for 9 years in 1946, and a famous lawyer by the name of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru came to Kashmir to defend him, and Jawaharlal Nehru was stopped. He was arrested by the Maharaja and sent back. So this is how you see the dynamics developing within Kashmir between the Maharaja, Sheikh Abdullah, and Pandit Nehru as well. So during the trial of the Quit Kashmir movement, they made the statement that the Treaty of Amritsar is a kind of sale deed of the territory and people of Kashmir. And this treatment of people as a commodity which can be transferred for hard cash has all along been deeply resented by Kashmiris, whether Hindu, Muslim or Sikh. So you see a well-formed political thought. You see the expression that they do not want to be governed by a sale deed. They want to choose for themselves what kind of government they want to live under. So I'll quickly move on to post 1947. So 1947, when Pakistan had already gained control of the territory you see in green, the Maharaja had signed the instrument of accession. And while there is still a significant debate about the instrument of accession itself, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm not getting into that because it's a longer discussion in itself. So I'm moving on the assumption the instrument has been signed, and so after the instrument, you have questions of plebiscite, you have questions of autonomy, the 1953 Accord, and the arrest of the Prime Minister of J&K. So until 1965, Kashmir had a Prime Minister. So what you have is, you have one Prime Minister in New Delhi, you have one Prime Minister in Srinagar, and we continue to have our own flag and our own constitution also. So that continues to this day. But in 1965, even after the instrument of accession has been signed, we still continue to have our own Prime Minister. So when the instrument of accession was put forward before the Governor General, Lord Mountbatten, he accepted it with this rider that once the soil has been cleared of the invader, the question of the state's accession will be settled by a reference to the people. The people will decide. And in fact, at that time, I can give you the case of Junagadh. Junagadh had a Muslim ruler with a Hindu majority population. So Nehru's idea was that the people will decide in any such case. Whereas Jinnah's perspective was that the rulers will decide. So if the ruler signs an instrument of accession, we abide by that. However, in the case of Junagadh, there was a plebiscite and they voted for India, which is how Junagadh today is a part of India. So the instrument of accession, till date, Kashmir has never had a merger. In fact, Omar Abdullah even spoke about this in the assembly, that Kashmir has not had a merger with India, there's only an accession. The merger was supposed to take place subsequently. But after the arrest of Sheikh Abdullah, we'll just come to that. So there was an agreement which was signed. Now I'm talking about 1953. There's an agreement between the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Prime Minister Sheikh Abdullah, where they basically define the relationship of Kashmir with India pending plebiscite. So pending plebiscite, what is the relationship we have? So it's basically a completely separate territory for all practical purposes. Kashmir had a separate constitution by 1958. At that time, in 1953, they had a prime minister of their own. They wanted to safeguard the state's identity. So all the powers, and for anyone from outside Kashmir, from India, if anyone had to visit Kashmir also, you required a permit. So this man called Shama Prasad Mukherjee, who was the founder of the Jan Sangh, which later became the Janata Party, which you know today as the Bharatiya Janata Party, which is why the Bharatiya Janata Party says that their founder's objective was complete integration. He opposed this ideology. He said that एक देश में दो प्रधान, दो विधान और दो निशान नहीं हो सकते. One nation cannot have two prime ministers, two flags and two constitutions. So he went to Kashmir to protest without a permit. He entered Kashmir, he was arrested, and later he died in 1953. Now, while these developments were happening, Sheikh Abdullah felt that India's stance seems to be more and more towards complete integration. The idea of a completely autonomous territory within India, which is what Sheikh Abdullah was envisioning at this time, which you can gauge from the 1953 Accord. That does not seem to be, it does not seem to be, India doesn't seem to be on the same plane for this idea. So Sheikh Abdullah decided that you see a change of heart in Sheikh Abdullah at this point, and he met Loy Henderson, who was the US ambassador, and he vociferously said that we want an independent state, and I feel that India and Pakistan will fight over Kashmir for 50 years to come. And he was right about that, but maybe politically, if he had been better advised, he would not have made this statement to Loy Henderson. Because soon after this, Sheikh Abdullah was arrested and the Prime Minister of Kashmir was disposed. His government was also dismissed. So you have the Prime Minister of India directing that this is a person who has been held accountable on charges of maladministration and corruption. So his government is removed, and he's arrested and he was jailed for 11 years after that. So this is the first fracture. This is the first time Kashmiris felt betrayed by India. We felt that there is something else at play over here, and India cannot completely be trusted. This is and subsequent to this, you see a season of betrayals. You see the special status of the state being weakened. You see Article 370 being weakened far more than any other state. Kashmir, often Indians think that we have a special status, but this status has been weakened considerably, so much so that the president just passed ordinances in Kashmir to extend various parts of the Indian constitution to Kashmir without consultation with the state assembly. So Sheikh Abdullah is arrested. It's a coup of sorts, and Bakshi Ghulam Muhammad Saeed was installed as the prime minister. He created this entity which was ironically called the Peace Brigade, which went around rounding up people who espoused the cause of plebiscite, tortured them, arrested them, and all the people were put as political prisoners at that time. So anyone who espoused the cause of plebiscite at that time was just rounded up, and all dissent was crushed. So the constitution which was framed in 1958, I would argue, is merely a functional constitution, because the organic development of expression, of political expression in Kashmir was cut short in 1953 itself. So post 1953, there is no organic development. India is completely involved in every movement that is happening in Kashmir. So till 1964, Sheikh Abdullah was in jail and intermittently he came out. In 64, Nehru sent Sheikh Abdullah to Pakistan to negotiate, and Nehru felt that this is going to go on forever. We need a final settlement on Kashmir. And to be fair to him, Nehru was probably the only Indian leader who had the political the standing to take on a hit like Kashmir. Today there is hardly any political party that is going to say, enough people have died. Is there no other way to resolve this? Is there nothing else we can do? There is no country in the world that stations its soldiers endlessly without a long-term plan for peace. And in Kashmir, it's already been 30 years now. There is no long-term plan for peace. The plan for peace in Kashmir is that people will forget about it, or Pakistan will stop trying and Kashmiris will stop trying. That is not a plan for peace. It is just a plan for convenience, because India has turned into a land of convenience where it's convenient for soldiers to die. You are not even asking how long should you be funding as taxpayers, how long should you be funding the deaths of your own soldiers. So these questions are not coming up because you have been told they have to die. Pakistan is a crazy nation on your border and these people have to be stationed there and they are protecting the Kashmiri people over there. Yesterday, day before yesterday, there was a statement made by the army that anyone who does not cooperate with the operations in Kashmir is an overground worker, is a militant, so to say. So, you are, with one stroke, you are painting the entire community, because the people have a political demand over there. So when you paint them as anyone who doesn't cooperate with the army, as having supported militants. And also they made an admission of sorts where they accepted that people in Kashmir do make it difficult for the army to conduct its operations because they're coming out in large numbers wherever they see any encounter happening. So this admission has sort of backfired, and today I read that they retracted the statement and said that no, these people don't come out on their own, it's the militants who are forcing them to come out. So they understood that if you accept that there is widespread support for separatism in Kashmir, then you've already lost the game. Then why are we stationing the army there? Then why not just ask the people and decide? So in 1964, Nehru took on this hit and told Sheikh Abdullah to go to Pakistan, negotiate and arrive at a final settlement. But while Sheikh Abdullah was there, Nehru passed away, and they say that when Sheikh Abdullah came back, this is the photo of Nehru and Sheikh Abdullah weeping profusely, at least apparently, at his deathbed. And they say that Sheikh Abdullah was a dear friend of Nehru, and he cried like a young child when he saw his dead body. Sheikh Abdullah was in jail for 11 years on Nehru's orders by that time. So whatever friendship they had was long gone. I feel the reason Sheikh Abdullah cried at this moment was because he realized the dream for any settlement on Kashmir is gone. After that, after Nehru, there was no leader who had the political standing to even take on a hit like this. And after Sheikh Abdullah came out, 1965 to 1971, they didn't contest any elections. They established this political party known as the Plebiscite Front, which had the sole objective of conducting a plebiscite under the UN. So they didn't contest any elections, they boycotted them. This is the poster of Sheikh Abdullah's 1965, when he was out of jail, that to hell with slave elections, Kashmir demands a freedom plebiscite. So I'm just trying to trace that freedom in Kashmir is not a new phenomenon. It has always been there. It's just that the Indian state has ignored it for so long that it has now snowballed into something which is so difficult to control that it's everywhere. It's every man, woman and child that are asking for Azadi. And like I said, Azadi is a very complex term. So you have to understand that people in Kashmir have to be allowed to talk to both sides of Kashmir. We have to talk amongst ourselves. We need to have a freedom of political expression to decide what is it that we want with this Azadi. But until we are at very basic arguments of existence. Right now we are at an argument that we are not being allowed to exist. The moment there is any deviation from what the state wants, these people are pulled up and the punishment is readily available for you. So in true Orwellian fashion. So this is what was happening till 1965 to 1971. But after 1971, when East Pakistan broke up, when Bangladesh declared its independence, India felt that Pakistan was so weakened now that there is no more opposition. So why even discuss Kashmir? Why even address this issue now? So India was in a very strong position at that time. But the mistake that was made was again that you analyzed Kashmir from the perspective of Pakistan. You did not analyze Kashmir from the perspective of the people. Because Pakistan is merely a side player. It is not the cause of what is happening in Kashmir. It is वो बहती गंगा में हाथ धोने का काम किया हमने, but it is not the prime player. The primary people who have to be addressed in this issue are the people, and India ignored them in 1971 as well. India ignored them in 1975 as well. So because they were not addressed, the people, after having exhausted all options, from 1947 we went to the United Nations. The United Nations passed resolutions on Kashmir that these elections that are happening in Kashmir, they do not count. A plebiscite administrator was even appointed, but both the nations, India and Pakistan, showed incredible transience over any progress in Kashmir, because it has now become a political issue. You have made it an issue for demagoguery, to easily rabble up people on what you want for Kashmir as opposed to what the people of Kashmir want. So once Bangladesh had declared independence, Sheikh Abdullah also, he had spent 22, 24 years by then in political wilderness. In fact, there's a very infamous speech which they made after this period, where they said that ये पिछले 22-25 साल हमने सियासती आवारागर्दी की, and now we are moving towards some development. Because at this point, Sheikh Abdullah was broken. And the mistake of the Kashmiri population at that time was we had reposed too much faith in one man. And this one man, India succeeded in breaking him. So in 1975, he signed the Instrument of Accord. This is a famous caricature that came out at that time to depict what we make of the Instrument of Accord. Sheikh Abdullah signed the Instrument of Accord with Indira Gandhi. And the accord is basically on the quantum of autonomy that you will have. It's a compromise. And though there was a Congress government in the state at that time, Sheikh Abdullah assumed the chief ministerial position with Congress support. And even the accord was not fully complied with by India, because within 11 months his government was dismissed, and he stood again for elections on an anti-center plan after that and won the elections. However, the public backlash at this time was tremendous. People were just aghast with these statements. For 25 years these people had waited and pinned their hopes on Sheikh Abdullah that something will come of the political movement that they started, the plebiscite front, the demands of the people. And then he with one statement says that ye to sab siyasati awaragardi thi. So people were aghast by this statement, and Sheikh Abdullah, to repress this new anger that was directed at him, they enacted a legislation which is today quite famous, the Public Safety Act of 1978, and the government used this to quell any dissent in the state. So between 1976 and 1987, Sheikh Abdullah, the NC, and Sheikh Abdullah's progeny, they enjoyed more of a free hand, because any form of dissent was completely suppressed. So in 1987, Kashmiris decided to try the last option. You have the Muslim United Front, which was a pro-plebiscite group, an amalgamation of various groups that came together to contest elections in Kashmir. So in recent times you hear that separatists don't contest elections. This has started from the 1987 election, because they contested elections at that time. Gilani contested elections. Many of the other separatists that you know of today also contested elections. But out of the 43 contested seats, even in areas that were stronghold constituencies, they won a total of just 4 seats out of 43. So the message that India gave to Kashmir through all of this that happened till 1987 was that no matter what you do, our objective is complete integration. No matter what you want, no matter what you say, you go to the UN, you try engineering indigenous political movement, peaceful political movement, you come for elections, you go meet diplomats around the country, nothing is going to work. This is how it is, and this is the totalitarian regime that we want and we support. So at that time, non-violent politics, non-violent movement in Kashmir took a backseat. So till the next 5-6 years, you see the rise in militancy, you see a rise in violent methods, because people saw no other option. They felt that everything else has been tried. And we are getting to that point again today, where you see civilians coming out, first peacefully, 2008, 2010, 2012, now again. So this isn't something new that is happening. You can't one fine day wake up and say, ye kaise hua? Because this has been happening again and again. And after all this time, if you still do not hear what the Kashmiris are chanting, what the Kashmiris are asking, you do suffer from cognitive dissonance. If your objective in Kashmir is one of peace or to protect people, you need to talk to the people about what they want. So till 1993, you see non-violent politics taking a backseat, and there are certain points that have to be understood as to what happened beyond this period. The way forward for India and Kashmir can only be when you accept that national integration at the cost of life and dignity is only colonialism. You have to have national integration with the will of the people. It is easy for India to control the land of Kashmir because it is one of the most militarized zones in the world. You have 7 lakh security personnel in Kashmir. Even Iraq and Afghanistan at the height of the invasion did not have this level of armed occupation. And it's easy to control the land, but if you want to win the heart of Kashmir, this is not the way. And again I'm saying, Azadi is not complete independence is not the only solution, but at least engage. you will then work out, you will then evolve solutions for all parts of Kashmir, even the part which is with Pakistan. So you have to open the channels for dialogues, and the denial of the basic freedom, the basic human freedom, which is the freedom to choose. Because of the denial to this, you assert before us that we are not capable of choosing what is good for us. You infantilize us. You think that our desires and our political aspirations are all motivated, as if we lack the capacity to think for ourselves. So it's difficult for Kashmiris to come and move forward and trust India beyond this. And also because there are these very convenient catchphrases that are just thrown around at us. Whenever we talk about Kashmir, there are these acronyms and simple concrete nouns that have been structured together to give it the dialect of newspeak, to give it the dialect of some official sanction. They tell you that it's all because of alienation and we want normalcy to return. I mean, what normalcy are you talking about? Is it normalcy if 3 or 4 people, just 3 or 4 people die every day, as opposed to right now where more than 10, more than 15, more than 20, hundreds are injured, hundreds are blinded? So this is not normalcy, but it is normal if 3 or 4 people die on a daily basis, which is the common scenario in Kashmir. So we have moved to a point where even the most ghastly of atrocities is just possible. We have moved to a point where the propaganda, the continuous propaganda that is used against us, it just makes lies sound truthful, it makes murder sound respectable, it makes atrocities sound acceptable, and it gives an appearance of solidity to pure wind. If there is wind in this room and I tell you this is solid, that's what you're doing. It makes murder sound acceptable. So in Kashmir, these words, we have given up on them. We are too tired of hearing these oft-beaten words like track 2 diplomacy karenge, nahi ab track 3 diplomacy karenge. And whatever is happening is just because of the separatists. This is all because of Pakistan. And let's exercise restraint. I mean, what restraint are you talking about when you have pellets being used at people which have been medically proven it is not a non-lethal weapon? Merely because it does not cause instant death, it is not non-lethal. You have caused complete handicapping of people. There are people who are blinded for life. There are people whose homes were entered into and they were shot. In fact, I personally would argue that even people who are pelting stones do not deserve to be killed. I understand that for some people it might be a difficult argument to comprehend. But even if someone is pelting stones, the Supreme Court of India says that the death penalty should be awarded only in the rarest of rare cases, only in the most heinous of cases where society is shocked by what this person has done. So if someone has pelted stones or if someone has raised slogans against India, this is not something that shocks society. This is not some person who is so detrimental to India's existence that he has to be eliminated. And I as a citizen, I as a person living in this country have a right to ask, why did he die? What right did you have to kill him? Or at the very least, as I said in the beginning, tell me what I have to not do to be killed. Because in the recent 4 months you saw a professor whose house was, the CRPF entered into his house, dragged him out, beat him up and killed him. So, and there are numerous such cases. The movie that you just saw, it touches upon an aspect of enforced disappearances. So at least with the case of, and I might sound cruel when I say this, at least in cases of death there is closure. But in cases of enforced disappearances there is no closure. I know people who are endlessly waiting. They are hopelessly waiting that their loved ones, their husband, someone will return. They think that some people, I've heard किसी का husband, किसी का भाई, किसी का बेटा वो 15 साल बाद भी लौट के आ गया, 20 साल बाद भी लौट के आ गया. And they believe in all kinds of things. They cling on to all kinds of things that give them hope. There are people who will tell you that I went to a shrine where a religious man told me that he has seen him in a vision and he'll come on the day I marry my daughter. And they desperately believe. And you don't even have the heart to tell them that it's not true. You can't even say that. So this is all they're clinging on to. When the mass graves were unearthed in Kashmir, we found shoes over there. And the victims, the relatives of the victims, when they came, this is all they had as memory. The shoes of the victims who had been buried over there. And statistically, it does not need to be proven anymore that tremendous human rights violations have been committed in Kashmir. There's a body of work, the plethora of work that has been published and written about it. And after all this also, if India says we don't know what Kashmiris want, ये एक बात नहीं बोल रहे हैं, then you are not listening. So in conclusion, I'll just point out two points I have to make. That when Pakistan talks, you say, what about Balochistan? And when China talks, you say, what about Tibet? When Kashmiri Muslims talk, you say, no, these are just agents of Pakistan. And when Kashmiri Pandits talk, and there are Kashmiri Pandits also who talk of changing status quo, when they talk, you say they are misguided. So who are you going to listen to, and when are you going to listen? So when I was in 11th standard, I read this book called Feynman on Physics, which was a very famous book at the time, and everyone who wanted to get a seat in a good medical college or an engineering college was a fan of this book. I still remember it had a bright yellow cover, and there was a question which the author had posed in this book. The question was that if because of some cataclysmic event, everything that we know, all scientific discovery that we have, if this is all erased, can you tell me one message that I can give to my next generation by which they will embark on this journey of scientific discovery? See, because in Kashmir, our families don't tell us that these atrocities have happened, these rights violations have happened. They want to guard us from this. They think if we don't talk to our children about it, they will not get, because we are drawn to this turmoil. We are drawn to, this is a part of our existence. It's a part of our lived reality. So we are drawn to working on it. And it is a moment of poignant meditation that we are all Kashmiris are so connected by our loss. We are connected by, I meet another Kashmiri, I know he will share my lived reality of torture, of enforced disappearance, of violence. So it's a point of meditation that we are so connected by our loss. And in Kashmir, if this question were asked, that what is that one sentence, if all that, this whatever history I gave to you of the struggle till now, the accords, the betrayals, the deficit in trust, and all these acronyms that are thrown at us, if all of this is just wiped off, if the next Kashmiri generation forgets about 2016, the 100 people that were killed, 2008, civilians, all the deaths that have ensued, the rapes, the violence, if we forget about it, if there is one sentence that Kashmiris have to be told by which the next generation will embark on this journey again of self-determination, of movement, of whatever has happened till now, they will discover it on their own, is hum kya chahte. So when Feynman asked this question, the answer to his question, that what is the one sentence by which the next generation will embark on the journey, on a journey of scientific discovery, his answer was that matter is made up of atoms. But in Kashmir, if the next generation does not know anything also, all you have to ask them is hum kya chahte, and they will give you the answer as to what they want. And the time has come for India to start asking that question, because unless you ask that question, हम तो कश्मीरी तो 70 साल से बोलते आ रहे हैं. It is easy for India to disregard what we are saying. It is easy for India to color, give it a colorable, you crouch our language in such a manner that it's easy to just ignore it. You are given bite-sized information which will not even go beyond the basic premise. There is no application of mind, there is no nuanced or critical thought as to what is happening, why are people coming out. So there is no process of that sort. So unless India engages on this front, it is not possible to come up with any solutions. And because Kashmiris have been talking about this for decades now, what is essential is that Indians understand that patriotism does not mean turning a blind eye towards the wrongs that your nation commits. But patriotism is about standing up and saying that I will not stand as my nation commits something wrong. I will not allow the name of my nation to be besmirched tomorrow. Because today you can sidestep these questions. But I just gave you the history of 70 years. It has not gone away, and it is not going to go away for another 70, 80 years as long as this is continuing. So unless you address these questions, unless Indians, non-Kashmiris, start asking these questions as to what has happened and why it is happening. Is there no other way? Is there no other solution? How long do you have to keep your soldiers there? How long should people, civilians over there suffer? How long will this continue? Because you are paying for it, and you have a direct stake in the matter, even though you don't see directly, you're not affected by it every day as I may be or people living in Kashmir may be. But you have a stake in the matter, and you have to ask these questions. From whatever walk of life you come from journalism or lawyers or even doctors or whatever walk of life you come from, use that walk of life and talk about, highlight something that you can if you care about your country. Because tomorrow you should not wake up and say that because the way you deal with Kashmir is going to identify who you are as a nation. Even if you say that Azadi is not possible, hame nahi deni, but say that, and then you define, then you know what kind of country you are. If it is okay, if it is acceptable for you to use military force to hold down a population, if that's the kind of country you want to be, just accept it. Just say, yes, this is who we want to be. Because tomorrow you shouldn't wake up one fine day and say, this is not my country anymore. These forces that have just risen suddenly, where did they come from? They didn't come all of a sudden overnight. They came when you did not raise these questions. So my request to you is to ask the questions, to move beyond the mere narrative that is given to you. Obviously, there is some truth at some level to those narratives also, but move beyond that, apply your mind, use some critical thought, a nuanced approach, and find whatever solutions you can from your walk of life. And then solutions to Kashmir, the larger problem, will also emerge. But just as the first step, what is essential for you to do is engage. Just engage with the problem over there, talk, and see how solutions can emerge beyond. And that's something we also have to do. I do not claim to have one fixed solution to Kashmir. We don't, because we are not being allowed to express, to talk also as to what the possibilities are, what can be the possibilities in this. So only when you allow us to explore these options can we come to some solution. But when you deny us the very basic human freedom, which is the freedom to make a choice, you degrade us, you dehumanize us, and it is, it's the rigid position, the rigid stand that India has exhibited all along since 1947 that has been the bane of the problem. Otherwise, it's not very difficult as it seems. So thank you all for your patient hearing, and